Have you ever felt that slow drain at work? That feeling of just going through the motions? Well, you're definitely not alone. Today, we're going to dig into why so many of us feel this way, and we're going to look at this really powerful Japanese concept that might just be the antidote we're all looking for.
Right now, we're living in the era of quiet quitting. You see it all over the place, people talking about acting your wage. And look, it's this impulse to do the absolute bare minimum, and it's often a defense against burnout, which is a very, very real problem. But we have to ask ourselves a serious question. What is the real price we pay when we intentionally hold ourselves back? When we just decide to mentally check out for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week? Well, the cost might be a lot higher than we think. Because here's the thing, the ultimate price isn't paid by your company, it's paid by you. Spending 40 hours a week practicing apathy, that doesn't just stay at the office. No way. It bleeds into the rest of your life. You're basically training your brain not to care. But there is another way. There's this alternative, a concept from Japanese philosophy called Kodawari. And this isn't about working harder for a promotion or for your boss. This is about finding dignity for yourself. The word is Kodawari, and it's one of those words that's really tricky to translate directly into English. I mean, it can mean obsession or fixation, but in this context, it's something way deeper. It's about committing to your own personal standard of excellence that has absolutely nothing to do with what anyone else expects. To get it, just picture a ramen chef who boils his broth for 48 straight hours. Not because the customer can taste the difference between hour 47 and 48, but because he knows. Or think about a gardener meticulously sweeping moss in a corner of the garden that nobody ever visits. That is Kodawari.
And this really shows a huge difference in mindset. In the West, we might look at that and call it inefficient perfectionism. We'd ask, what's the return on investment here? But Kodawari isn't about profit. It's about your personal standard being a reflection of your character. And it's about finding dignity in the work itself.
This really is the core belief. It's the idea that the quality of what you produce is directly tied to your own integrity. So every time you cut a corner, because, no one will notice, you're actually sending a little message to yourself that your best effort doesn't really matter. So this brings us to the real heart of the issue, this relationship between the effort we put in and the meaning we get out. A lot of our dissatisfaction, it turns out, comes from a big misunderstanding of how these two are connected. Our typical view of work is purely transactional, right? We trade our time for money. We do things to get praise, a promotion, maybe a bonus. We see the workday as something we just have to get through so we can get to our real life. But Kodawari completely rejects this. The logic is, if you spend 8 hours a day doing something, that is a huge part of your life. It's happening right now. Now, this probably sounds completely backward, doesn't it? Shouldn't quiet quitting save your energy? I mean, if you're doing less, shouldn't you feel more rested? Well, psychologically, the truth is actually the exact opposite. See, when you choose to engage with something intentionally, your brain can enter what psychologists call a flow state, and this releases feel-good chemicals like dopamine. It's that feeling you get when you're just totally absorbed in a task. You feel capable, you feel useful, and believe it or not, you feel energized. I mean, just think about it for a second. Fighting boredom, constantly watching the clock, suppressing your natural drive to actually accomplish something, that is exhausting. It creates this low-level stress that just saps your energy all day long. But intentional engagement? That's invigorating. Okay, so this all sounds great in theory, but how do you actually apply it to your life without just burning yourself out in a totally different way? Well, the key is to start small, really small, and to make it personal. And this right here is the most important thing to remember. This practice is not for your company, it's not for your manager, and it's not for your next performance review. This is an internal act. It's about reclaiming your own agency and your own self-respect. So here's the micro action. Let's call it your signature touch. First, just pick one single, tiny part of your job. Seriously, it could be how you format an email, how you organize a digital file, how you greet a customer. Step 2, decide that you are going to own that task completely. And third, make it excellent. Not because you have to, but just because you can. And what happens next is fascinating. When you have just one area of your work where you absolutely refuse to compromise your own standards, you build this small kernel of self-respect. And that feeling, it starts to spread. It ripples out to other areas of your job and even into the rest of your life. This whole idea of a signature touch leads us to a much deeper philosophical shift. It's really about changing our focus from these grand, huge achievements to finding dignity in the small, everyday details. We often feel empty because we're waiting for our job to give us meaning. We're waiting for that perfect project or the perfect boss to suddenly make us feel like our work matters. We think meaning is something out there, something to be discovered. But Kodawari teaches us the exact opposite. Meaning isn't something you find, it's something you bring. You are the one who creates meaning through the care, the attention, and the intention that you pour into any task, no matter how small or mundane it seems. This practice is actually a form of another incredible Japanese concept, gammon. It means endurance with dignity. Look, it's easy to do great work when everyone's watching and cheering you on, but real character, that's built when you uphold your standards when no one is looking at all. Ultimately, it all boils down to this. Your job title does not define you. Your salary does not define you. You could be a CEO with zero Kodawari or a janitor with immense Kodawari. What defines your character is the personal standard you hold for yourself. It's how you do what you do. So, I'll leave you with this one question. Forget about changing your whole job overnight. That's too much. Just think about one small thing, one little detail that you can choose to make excellent just for you. What will be your signature touch?